Hello everyone and welcome to our second module in our personal development course for grade 12 in senior high school. And our module for today is entitled, How Do I Grow Holistically? This module will focus on learning about the different areas in personal development that we should look at and we should consider in order for us to understand how a person grows not just in one area but holistically. No? And all of these areas are related to one another and we cannot take them separately from each other. And it's good that we will be able to understand these areas so that we can also better prepare ourselves as we grow and develop and as we begin to face challenges that life-changing, that are life-changing, and we begin to make decisions that can affect especially our career, right? Our career journey. So at the end of this module, you'll be able to discuss the relationship among physiological, cognitive, psychological, spiritual, and social development to understand your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. It is hoped that you'll be able to evaluate your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors and show their connections in actual life situations. And we also hope to enrich through this module the core values of uniqueness, constant communication, and equality, and enhance skills learned in English and visual arts, and also enrich your other intelligences such as linguistic, interpersonal, and spatial. So I'd like you to take a few minutes to ask yourself these questions. Have you changed in the past 5 years? What changes have you noticed in how you think, feel, or behave? And have you experienced emotional highs and lows or mood swings? So if you are in the 12th grade now, this is from when you were in 7th grade. So try to recall these past 5 years from when you were in grade 7 and try to see if there have been some changes that you experienced, changes in how you think, feel, or behave. Of course, the physical changes are very obvious. If you look at a picture of yourself from when you were in grade 7 to a picture of yourself now, you will really see a lot of differences. Maybe only a few people won't see any differences, but there will be a lot of physiological differences for sure. But you need to try to recall, and try to reflect as well. Have there been any changes in your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors? So take some time and then try to remember, try to see if there are any differences. Why do we need to understand this? We need to understand this because by realizing that it's not just your physical attributes that have changed in these past 5 years, we also understand that there are different areas of our personal development and not just the physical one that we need to consider when it comes to introspection and reflection so that we can better prepare ourselves, so that we can improve, right? As adolescents, you are in your adolescent stage at the moment. As adolescents, you are transitioning from childhood to adulthood. So in order for you to prepare for the next stages of your life, you need to look at the different areas in which you are significantly changing and understand why. Why are these areas changing? How are they changing? Okay, so that you can also have a better grasp of all of these things that are happening within you. So the first area of personal development, as we said earlier, is the physiological area. This is the most obvious one because it refers to the physical changes in your body as well as your senses and changes in skills related to movement. So if you could dance very well already when you were in the 7th grade, you can dance even better now because you have practiced and your movements are now more refined. If you could draw when you were in the 7th grade, all the more now that your drawing skills have have become more intricate. No? Painting, singing, you have improved in all of these, no? But of course, when you talk about your physiological, of course, the obvious things that you will see are your appearances, no? The facial hair, the change in the shape of the body, and all of those things, all of those changes, all of those developments. All right. So next, the social area of personal development, which is your inborn capacity to relate to others, to connect, and to feel belongingness, is also a very important area in your development as adolescents. Why? Because as adolescents, your peers are very important to you. Your relationships are very important to you. A lot of your development is founded on how well you have adjusted to your social relationships, how much you have adjusted to your in your interpersonal skills. So the social area of personal development is another area that is very important, that we should look into, that we should consider if we want to reflect on the changes that are happening to us, especially at this stage. Now, Albert Bandura, if you can recall that we have talked about him in the beginning in our first module when we talked about some of the different theories of personality, Albert Bandura is the theorist under the social cognitive perspective of personality theories. And he talked about the theory of human agency. Human agency, according to him, is the capacity of humans to exercise control over their own lives as the essence of their humanness. He said that people are naturally self-regulating, proactive, self-reflective rather, and self-organizing. That means we do not self-destruct. That means naturally we tend to become, to improve. We tend to make an effort to become better, to succeed. And more specifically, he talked about self-efficacy. He said this is the belief that one can succeed in what one wants to do. Now, why is this important for us to learn or to highlight in Albert Bandura's theory of personality? It's because this theory of human agency and this self-efficacy is very important, so that we can understand that although we can make mistakes, although we can come across our own limitations or weaknesses, naturally we will do anything in our power so that we can succeed, so that we can improve, so that we can overcome these challenges and overcome these difficulties. All right. Another theory of Albert Bandura is the theory of reciprocal causation. So this is where he says that a person is influenced by his environment and the behavior of the people around him, but at the same time, this environment and the behavior of people around him is also influenced by him, by what he does, by the things that he actively does or actively contributes to that to those circumstances. All right. So that means a person is not just a passive receiver of what is happening around him or her. And also, a person can try to make an effort, be more proactive in his behavior, in his or her behavior, so that it also creates a positive ripple effect to his environment. So why is this related to the theory of human agency? In human agency, we are saying that a person naturally has self-efficacy in order to succeed in whatever that person wants to do. In this theory of reciprocal causation, we are saying that we are not just passive receivers of what happens in the environment, of what happens in of other people's behavior to us, and vice versa. So we can influence also the circumstances surrounding us, so that not everything is negative. No, and it's important for us to understand this, because as adolescents, as we said earlier, our social relationships are very important, are significant to us, especially at this stage, because we long for that sense of belongingness. However, there will also be a lot of setbacks. We will also experience a lot of setbacks during this time. But because of what Albert Bandura is telling us, that gives us the idea that no matter how difficult the circumstances are, we can overcome them and we can play an active role in influencing a more positive outcome in our circumstances. Right? Case in point, during the pandemic, the pandemic was something that is beyond our control even up to now, and it is in our environment. The behavior of people around us because of this pandemic is also beyond our control. But are we just going to sit around passively and expect to be influenced by these uncontrollable circumstances? Because of the theory of human agency, it tells us that we can actually do something. Because we have that self-efficacy, which tells us that we want to succeed, that we want to make an effort in order to succeed in our endeavors. Okay, so another area of personal development is the emotional area. This has to do with the feelings that we experience. How do we really feel? How is my emotional well-being? Now, at this point, we need to also be able to differentiate emotion from feeling. They're actually two different things. So when we say emotion, we're talking about a physiological experience, a state of awareness that gives us information about the world and is a response that generates biochemical reactions in our bodies. What am I pertaining to? I'm pertaining to the dilation of the pupils, for example, or the increase in heart rate, or the sweating. All right. So these are emotions. This is how your body reacts to triggers in the environment. All right. But what is feeling? Feeling is your conscious awareness of the emotion itself. This is a reaction to your emotions that are subjective in nature. What does that mean? This means this is your interpretation of the biochemical reactions manifested in your body. For example, when you're talking about dilating of pupils or increasing heart rate or sweating, these are the same. This is the same physiological experience when you are feeling scared, for example, or nervous. But at the same time, these can be similar to what your body experiences or what your body goes through if you are feeling excited. So the label of being scared, being excited, this is already your feeling. This is your subjective interpretation of the emotion that is happening in your body. This is putting a name to the physiological experience. All right? So that is the difference between emotion and feeling. Now, there are different emotions. There are basic emotions. I'm sure some of you can recall this in the movie, if you have seen the movie Inside Out. All right? So these are the basic emotions. There's happy, sad, angry, or disgusted in the movie. These are separated now, but basically it can be considered as one, and then afraid or surprised. So these are the basic emotions, but there is also a whole range of emotions that can be interpreted in between these basic emotions. So these are just the basic, and there are a lot of in-betweens. I don't know if you remember when you were in preschool, your teacher would ask you, how are you? And then she would show you a chart of different emojis, no, wherein you can see different kinds of emotions. No, there are even labels now for emotions that I'm sure people had generations ago, but they're only putting labels to them now. For example, the emoji labeled as meh. All right. During my time, I would feel meh sometimes, but I didn't know that's how it was called, meh, no? So yeah, there are so many different kinds of emotions. All the more, so many different kinds of feelings. All right, but these are the basic ones: happy, sad, angry or disgusted, and afraid or surprised. All right, the next area of personal development that we will also be discussing is the cognitive area. This refers to a person's intellectual abilities as shown in his or her thoughts, attitudes, beliefs, and values. Attitude is a relatively enduring organization of beliefs, feelings, and behavioral tendencies towards socially significant objects, groups, events, or symbols. All right. Why are we talking about attitude if what we are discussing is cognitive, which refers to a person's intellectual abilities? Because, as explained here, your intellectual abilities can be shown in your thoughts, your attitudes, your beliefs, and your values. Also, there are 3 components to the cognitive area of personal development, and this includes the affective, the behavioral, and the cognitive. Affective, when you talk about affective, this refers to how you receive information that is given to you, that is fed to you. So now, if the information being fed to you is being done in such a way that is appealing to you, for example, then the learning or the acceptance of that information becomes more effective. All right? How shall I explain this further? Of course, if a lesson is just given to you and it is just presented to you in text materials, or the teacher will just say, just read the book, the learning will not be as effective if the teacher asks you to learn about the topic by presenting a video, for example, or presenting it through a game, an online game, or an online quiz. All right, because as a learner, as a 21st century learner, using media, for example, is very effective for you. Therefore, you will accept that information, and learning will happen more if it is done that way, in a language that is natural to you. All right, if it is presented in a language that is natural to you, in a manner that is natural to you. That is why one of the components of cognitive development is the affective part, no? And then behavioral is also a component, because how you react towards that information given as presented through a manner that is appealing to you, no? And that will further facilitate the learning process. And of course, after that, the cognitive component, because after you receive it and after you positively respond to this information that is being fed to you, then you process it in your brain and it becomes more cemented. All right. And that is why those are the 3 components considered when it comes to the cognitive area of personal development. Now, this is B.F. Skinner. He is a behaviorist, and he talked about the operant conditioning theory. It is one of the theories that help us understand what happens, no, when it comes to the cognitive area of personal development. All right. So B.F. Skinner said that a person is the sum of total behaviors that were rewarded by his or her environment, and hence were developed through repetition and reinforcement. So B.F. Skinner says that a person's behavior, all right, is already the total of many different behaviors that happened in the past that were either reinforced positively or negatively and repeated through time. All right. So, for example, if I know somebody who hates mayonnaise. Okay, she hates mayonnaise with a passion. But this is because when she was younger, her mom made something, made like a salad using a new mayonnaise brand that she wasn't used to, and she didn't like the taste of the mayonnaise. So this person tried to eat the salad. Normally she would eat it, but because this time around they used a different brand which didn't sit right with her, or she wasn't able to digest it properly. She got sick after. She felt sick after. And after that, it happened again. All right? It happened again on a different occasion. And she felt sick again. And that is why she didn't wait a third time to feel sick. From then on, she realized that it was the mayonnaise in the salad that was making her feel sick. Therefore, she decided that she does not like mayonnaise anymore. So until she grew up to an adult, she does not eat mayonnaise at all and would only eat salad without the mayonnaise. All right. So this is an example of operant conditioning. Because of the repeated instances of this negative reinforcement, her behavior towards mayonnaise became like that. No? In this theory, B.F. Skinner is also saying that some people can also be conditioned through modeling. He said that people can look up to somebody, and whatever that person believes in or identifies with, or what that person values, can also influence you if you look up to him or her. This is another aspect of behaviorism and the operant conditioning theory, wherein a person can, because of repeated instances wherein these circumstances are presented to him or her, he or she will change how he or she behaves. And that happens also at a cognitive level, because the mind processes your intellectual skills process those circumstances, and you make up these ideas or these behaviors. You end up behaving in such a manner that is influenced by those repeated circumstances and how you reacted to those circumstances, whether positively or negatively. Now, another area of personal development is the spiritual area. This is defined as discovering oneself beyond the ego. It is known as the soul, the spirit, or the inner essence, and is often taken for granted. A lot of people think that when you talk about the areas of your personal development, you just need to look at the physical, the emotional, the social, and the cognitive. And the spiritual is just for those who have a faith, who practice their faith, who pray. But actually, everyone has this spiritual area of personal development. We go through this area of personal development because this is defined as what we think, or how we behave beyond our own needs. No, when we go out of ourselves, when we go out of our comfort zones, this is the spiritual area of personal development. No? So when you talk about this area of personal development, you are talking about your values. What are values? Values are subjective judgments that people make about the importance of certain things or issues. These are what you consider as essential to yourself. This is what you value, what you find important. Values are also principles or standards of behavior that help you decide what is important to you, what is important in your life. They are ideals or goals which tend to be aspirational. For example, when I say that I value your time, therefore this is an ideal that I will respect you because I value your time. I also value my time, therefore I will be punctual. All right? So these are subjective judgments that you make because of the things that are important to you. All right, so I hope you understood that. No, that's why it's called values, because these are judgments that you make about the things that you value. Now, The spiritual area also speaks about virtues. What are virtues? Virtues are qualities which typically reflect what you prize or what is universally considered to be good and desirable. So again, these are qualities that reflect what you value. All right, so those are the virtues. These are the lived values. These are the values in action, which you achieve on a dependably regular basis. So if you value these certain things time and time again, and you are able to live this out, put this into action over and over again, it becomes a virtue. That's why they say patience is a virtue, because you have to practice it. You don't learn it overnight. You learn it by applying it, by encountering situations wherein it is called for. You are challenged to become patient, and that's why it is a virtue. Okay, I hope you understood the value and the virtue. Now, both values and virtues are the guiding principles that you live by. This will help shape your belief by forming a system that can be used as a guide for you to determine what is right and wrong, what is true or false. So the values and the virtues put together become your belief system, which is a moral code by which you set your standards. And this serves as a guide throughout your life. And this is very important in a person's spiritual area of development. All right, so the values that you learn through time, the virtues that you develop by living out those values, and therefore put together, you are able to form your own belief system, which is your moral code, the standard by which you live by. And as you develop, as you grow older, this also matures. This also becomes more enriched. All right, so now I hope that you were able to understand those 5 areas of personal development: physiological, social, emotional, cognitive, and the spiritual area of personal development. Now, let us try to focus on one area of personal development, which is the physical area of personal development. And we will also, at the same time, talk about mental development. All right, so as we discuss the physiological or the physical area of personal development, we will also be touching on mental development. Specifically, we will be focusing on these keywords: puberty, adolescence, growth hormones, and metacognitive thinking. Now, our reference for this lecture is the book Personal Development by Tanael, Lactao, and Golo. And we can follow the lecture by turning to Chapter 2, which begins on page 20. When you talk about puberty, you are talking about the stage that is characterized mostly by the physical changes that you experience, no? And this is more specifically the maturation of the primary and secondary sex characteristics, which happens when growth hormones are released by the brain. Now, puberty may start at mid-childhood or late childhood, and will continue on through your adolescent years. Now, during the adolescent stage, as an adolescent, you are in the period in life which is characterized by the transition from childhood to adulthood. Therefore, this is specifically the stage wherein you will really see these physical changes happening, no? Because you will really see the difference between childhood and adulthood, and it all happens, the transition happens during the adolescent stage. And the puberty, which is, as I said earlier, the characteristic changes in your physical development begins, signals the beginning of adolescence, no? And because we are pertaining to the maturation of your primary and secondary sex characteristics, you will see your body changing through the different physical attributes. There's the body hair, the sweat glands, the voice, the shape of your body. You grow taller, all right? This is where the growth spurt happens. But also you understand, no? That is why we cannot limit it just to the physiological development. Mental development is affected. Why? Because since all of these things are happening, you will also start to feel physical discomfort, and you will also start to feel self-consciousness. That's why it also affects your mental development. Anxiety will start to happen, and you start to feel awkward or uncomfortable. You might also encounter unnecessary attention, which you do not want. All right, this adolescent stage can be awkward for a lot of us because of this, specifically because of this. These physical changes have to happen once you reach puberty because you are transitioning to adulthood. And therefore, your mental development will also be affected. These changes are normal and they are expected, but you also have to understand that because these changes are happening, you have to catch up. Your mental processes, you have to catch up. You have to learn how to practice proper hygiene. You have to eat the right kinds of food. You have to do the right kinds of activities in order for development to be optimal, in order for you to develop properly, no? And also so that you can also overcome those feelings of awkwardness or self-consciousness. You would It would be ideal that you are able to engage in activities that can help you gain self-confidence, also to protect your mental health. Now, as we said, the growth spurt happens during this time. This is why during this time, your growth hormones are actively working. Your growth hormones are responsible for your physical growth, and they are released in the brain. All right, your growth hormones are released in the brain. And in the brain, there are different parts of the brain that are responsible for many different things in your body's development. Now, because the growth hormones are released in the limbic system of the brain, alright? In the limbic system of the brain, you will also find your amygdala, which is an almond-shaped gland located deep in the middle of the brain. And this is responsible for the fight or flight mechanism. And it is also where your hypothalamus is found, which is a seahorse-shaped gland located near the amygdala, which affects your memory. And because this is so, it is during this time wherein these parts of your brain are also working double time. They are affected because of the growth hormones that are being released aggressively. And that is why during this time, you tend to have that feeling of uneasiness always. Am I going to face this battle, this challenge, or am I not? And this is also the time, one good thing, no? Because your hypothalamus is responsible for your memory. This is a good time for you to start learning a different language, because your memory can increase in capacity during this time, no? Now, another important part of the adolescent brain that we need to understand, no, is that there is a part of, if the limbic system and the parts of the limbic system are working overtime, there is another part of the brain which is found in your prefrontal cortex, wherein this part of the brain is not yet fully developed. But this part of the brain is responsible for your rational thinking, for decision making, logical thinking. Because this is not yet fully developed, all right, adolescents tend to be more emotional because your growth hormones are being overworked, and this is in the released in the limbic system which is also responsible for your emotions. That is why your emotions are somehow overpowering your ability to think rationally, because your prefrontal cortex is not yet fully developed. All right? This is responsible for your higher order thinking skills. This is responsible for properly communicating, making decisions. This is responsible for that. And because this is not yet fully developed, it is important for adults to be able to offer you guidance, to offer you support. Because your rational thinking and logical thinking is not yet fully developed. It will only fully develop once you reach your mid-20s. Understand that. Now, this is, I believe this is also why here in the Philippines, according to the Constitution, if you are 25 years old and below, and you want to get married, you still need parental consent. No? It is not yet legally okay for you to get married without that parental consent. I believe this is why. Because the adolescent brain, until it reaches maturity at the mid-20s, age of around that age, you will not, you will have more difficulty in thinking rationally and logically and making life-changing decisions. And that is why even when I was an adolescent, I was more emotional rather than rational. And I acknowledge that I really needed the help of somebody older. All right, now, while it is important that I keep my peers, that I am supported by people my age, because we are all going through that confusion stage still, because we are all not yet fully developed rationally, we all need the help and guidance of somebody who's older. That's why having somebody, a caring adult, whether it be your parents, a teacher, a guidance counselor, an older sister, it is important that we are able to consult. And mentorship is a very important aspect, especially when it comes to adolescence, developing adolescence. Mentorship is something that we can really benefit from. I appreciate the mentors that I had when I was in high school. In fact, some of them, I still value their friendship even up to now. All right? Because I believe that they really helped me during that time when I thought that I knew everything. I thought that I didn't need any help, and yet they were there to support me and to guide me, to show me the right path. And I followed, I listened, and I really appreciate the things that they did for me. No? Of course, at that age, we want to prove that we are independent because we are transitioning from childhood to adulthood. But there's nothing wrong with asking help. No? All the more at this stage, you are still finding your way, you are still transitioning. So please do not resist the help from older, caring adults who are more mature and who are more perhaps experienced or learned in the different circumstances that you might find yourself in as an adolescent. Now, as we said earlier, the part of your brain that is responsible for memory is also actively working during this time, which is why your memorization capacity also increasingly expands at this time, and we should take advantage of it. That's why I said earlier, you can actually learn a new language, and it would be easier for you than for somebody my age, for example, or perhaps. All right. Now, one thing that adolescents also experience is their exponentially increasing metacognitive thinking skills. Metacognitive thinking is thinking about thinking. This is fully enriched, and you have an opportunity to develop this during your adolescent stage. And this will actually help you become a better decision maker in the future, no? Since you can develop your metacognitive thinking at this time, and your prefrontal cortex, as we mentioned earlier, is not yet fully developed, this will be the time for you to practice thinking about thinking. That's why reflecting about your lessons, reflecting at the end of the day about the things that occurred, the things that took place, is a very important exercise that can help you develop further your decision-making skills or your rational and logical thinking. And this practice will help you increase your metacognitive thinking capacity. And as you grow into an adult, this will be very beneficial for you, especially when you are faced with challenges, unique challenges, or when you are dealing with different kinds of individuals from different backgrounds with different dynamics. This will really help you. You can really benefit from it. So it's important that during this time, you are able to challenge your thinking and be more reflective so that the learning can become deeper and you will really fully develop your higher order thinking skills. And when you become an adult, your frontal lobe, because it is already fully developed, can integrate your emotional reactions with your logical thinking skills. You will no longer be controlled only by your emotional impulses, but you'll be able to balance it with your logical thinking skills. So I hope that you were able to understand what we discussed today, the different areas of personal development. And we took time to focus on the physiological area of personal development. And of course, when you talk about the physiological area of personal development, you talk about your brain development. We also discuss about some areas of mental development in adolescence. Thank you for your time and God bless.